and I find it interesting to talk of narratives, because let's talk about the Fine Gael narrative. Well, we see our ministers and spokespeople talking about GDP, fastest growing economy in the EU, full employment. But the reality is you might as well be the emperor strutting around naked, because the emperor has no clothes, because we're not living in an economy, we live in a society, and people have been struggling for years under this Fine Gael government. The cost of housing and childcare isn't just a new reality for people, it's long been a millstone around families' necks, and that is, of course, as they can even get a house or a place in childcare. The pandemic and the war in Ukraine, yes, of course, it has exacerbated the situation, and it has caused energy prices and food prices to skyrocket, and families are now choosing between heating and eating, but they were doing that a couple of years ago. I did a survey of people, and they were telling me then that they were going down lanes to pick sticks up off the road. They were sleeping in one room. Elderly people were going to bed during the day to keep warm. So it's not just down to the pandemic or the war in Ukraine. And again, we'll say nobody's saying the government has a magic wand or that they can help every single household. The problem is that they could do an awful lot more. The energy poverty strategy lapsed in 2019. And I have repeatedly, since I came into this House, called on the Minister, where is the new energy poverty strategy? Where is the priority for people who are struggling to heat their homes? The truth is that energy poverty isn't a priority for this government. We haven't got the energy poverty strategy, we don't have the data on households either to see how many households are actually in energy poverty and what is the energy expenditure. We were asking for that for 2 years, we're still here, we still don't have the data, and yes, they've been criticised that the retrofitting scheme can't even be assessed for the social impact that it's having because we don't have that data. So effectively, without it, the retrofitting programme as it currently stands is a wealth transfer. The cost of living crisis that we are currently experiencing in this House is just indicative of how catastrophic life has been for people after 10 years of Fine Gael in government. Housing, healthcare, childcare, cost of energy, the list of failures go on and on and on. And it's interesting to see that even now it's gotten to the point where we have the President feeling that he needs to say something, and he's right. Because what he said yesterday was profound. A republic is about meeting its people's needs. And we are in a housing disaster. It's long since gone from a crisis. It is a disaster. And Budget 2021 did nothing for renters. Not a single measure. For one of the biggest crises in the country, not a single measure in the budget for renters. Sinn Féin would put 1 month's rent back in the pockets of hard-pressed renters and ensure that there would be no rent increases for 3 years. Fine Gael say it can't be done. They won't even test it in the courts. They'd rather see people be made homeless. When it comes to childcare, for those lucky enough to find a place for their child, childcare is a second mortgage. Again, we were told bring forward proposals. Sinn Féin has fully costed proposals that would immediately reduce the cost of childcare for hard-pressed families. And we see childcare as an essential public service. We've also repeatedly called for an increase in the working age social welfare rates. We've called for the living wage. Long before any other parties were talking about a living wage, Sinn Féin were calling for a living wage. We've also called for the establishment of a discretionary fund of €15 million to assist households with utility debt, something that the St Vincent de Paul and Social Justice Ireland have been calling for as well, because workers and families can literally take no more. More and more people are falling through the cracks, and it is long beyond the point where we need the mini budget. We need a comprehensive package of measures, and people are desperate. And others have said, what we're hearing tonight from Fine Gael is that they'll just have to wait it out. Wait it out until October. And even then, the measures that would be in that budget won't come into effect until the new year. So rather than bring forward a mini budget with targeted measures, with comprehensive package to help people who are struggling today, the Taoiseach is kite-flying income tax breaks, and now tonight we're seeing Fine Gael senators doing the same. And we're hearing them use the same old tired dog whistle tropes of the people who get up early in the morning. Well, the full cost of this measure that they're proposing is €1.7 billion, has been said. So that exceeds the government plan's budget package of €1.5 billion for all new measures. So it leaves no funding available for hospital waiting lists, for childcare, for social welfare increases, or further support with fuel prices, school class sizes, public transport measures, further education measures, or anything else. So is that the Fine Gael policy? Is that the policy a grave threat to public services? No more public services, just a tax break for some workers. That's it, because that is, as my colleague Senator Gavin has said, that's Thatcherite 101. Every single public service in this country is creaking at the seam. Every single one of them. And the war in Ukraine has brought it into clear focus, because we have refugees now who are sleeping on the floors of hotels. We don't have hotel rooms for the tourists because we're housing our homeless and refugees in the hotel rooms. Children are living in pain. Our older people, as I said, are going cold and they're going hungry. So I would urge my Fine Gael colleagues, rethink your approach, because all you're offering is the equivalent of a price of coffee to some workers. And instead, you could be investing in real public services and targeted cost of living measures for those who are struggling the most.
Thank you very much.